coffee. Kendrick Dish Creative, Shoot for Results. Those are my companies. One is focused on real estate video marketing. The other is all about photography and creative videos. Today I want to talk about something I just bought, which is this, the Fuji XT-2. I bought this about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I've been using it as my, daily camera. I'm using it right now to film this. I wanted a camera that I could use for vlogging. I wanted a camera I could use as a really good still photography camera. I had a 70D for that purpose, but I dropped it when I was in Africa and I broke it. And so I needed a new camera, and I was thinking about upgrading. I ran into a photographer named Aaron Curry, and he had a Fuji, and I asked him, I said, what makes you like Fuji? And he said, it was the camera that was designed the way he likes to shoot. And so I rented one, used it, tried it, decided I really liked it, and so here we are. So that brings me to, after using it for about a month or 5 or 6 weeks, what do I think of it? And I'm pulling up my list here. So I just made a video where I talked about my thinking behind switching. What was I thinking to sell off all my Canon gear and invest fully in Fuji? And that had to do with being creative. I needed a new tool to try and push my creativity, and I felt like Canon wasn't the answer. So I looked elsewhere, and I'm committed to Fuji for at least a year, and we'll try it. And I'll keep working on it. I'll keep trying to get better. That doesn't mean I'm committed to Fuji forever, but for right now, I'm here. I've actually heard that there are some plans to really embrace video, which is exciting, and they've got some perhaps new cameras down the line that are going to be even more exciting than this one. So for right now, it sounds promising, and I'm along for the ride. So what do I think of it about after just a little over a month? I think the dials on top are nice. You've got the ISO as a dial. You've got the shutter speed as a dial. You've got the exposure compensation as a dial. You've got a nice, easy to use button on top as a dial. You've got the type of shooting you want to do, bracketing or single exposure or video mode as kind of a dial. You've got the aperture as a dial on the lenses. And so really a lot of things are dials, and that actually works out pretty well. It reduces the electronic component a little bit. A lot of things are in dials versus in the menus. But what that does is that makes it a little bit of a two-handed operation sometimes. You've got one hand out here shooting, holding the camera, and then you got another hand, you're adjusting the aperture or the dials up on top. Now with Canon, I could control almost everything with one hand. That means I could shoot while drinking a coffee, or holding a book or a bag, or opening a door, or holding on to the side of a vehicle, or whatever. I can use this left hand to do something I need to do with it. Versus this, I feel like this hand's, kind of sometimes being used. Now that's a minor quibble, but it's something that I've noticed. One of the other things I'm loving about it, of course, is the image quality. I feel like the image quality is fantastic. These lenses that I bought, they feel sharper than the Canon, and perhaps that's the sensor, that's the trans array sensor that Fuji has. It's designed to be a little bit sharper. So perhaps it's that, but these Fuji lenses are designed by the same team that designed the big professional broadcast Fuji non-lenses, and they know what they're doing. These lenses are awesome. So for me, the Canon glass has its place in history, but the Fuji does too. And so for me, that was a neutral trade out. So the images look great. The camera itself has a nice feel to it. It feels solid. It feels a little bit heavy, a little bit like a heavy duty piece of technology. It doesn't feel wimpy. It doesn't feel like it's plasticky. It doesn't feel like it's going to break. It's really solid, and it feels nice in my hand. It's a little bit lighter than the Canons. It's a little bit lighter than some of the other cameras I've tried, which is great. The lenses are a little smaller and a little lighter, which that's great too. So overall, the weight it's a little bit lighter. I'm not going to claim that it's a lot lighter. It's a little lighter. I just spent, back in March, I spent 3 weeks in Africa, and I had all my photography gear in a backpack, and that shit was heavy. So that was another reason it kind of prompted me to think about the weight a little bit. I'm probably saving a couple of pounds now with all this other gear versus the Canon gear. I mean, that 70-200 is just humongous and really heavy. So I've actually got a 50-140. So I've actually got the 50-140. It's a little smaller. It's a little lighter. Not enormously lighter, not enormously smaller. It's a little smaller, and it adds up. I've also got the 10-24, and that's a little smaller than the Canon's version. It's pretty lightweight. So in all, I feel like I'm saving a little bit of weight when I travel. The other thing, as a mirrorless camera, I'm absolutely loving the viewfinder. The electronic viewfinder inside is huge, it's bright, it gives me the information I need. I feel confident in the image I'm taking before I even press the shutter, and so that's a time saver. I don't feel like I need to chimp on the back of the camera. I feel like I nail it, which actually reduces the amount of pictures I take. If I know for sure I'm getting it right before I push the shutter, I'm done. I stop taking pictures. I know I got it. Versus sometimes with a DSLR, I shoot a whole bunch and then I'll chimp and maybe even change the exposure a little bit during to make sure I'm getting it. So there's a great advantage in saving on memory, saving in time and editing to the mirrorless system. And so for that, I'm actually loving mirrorless as a whole. I'm loving this Fuji for that reason. One of the things I found interesting is this pop-up flash. I forgot to have it handy. One of the things I'm loving is this pop-up flash. I haven't really used it for any particular reason yet, but the fact that it's external, I don't need to carry it if I don't need it. That's awesome. Most of the time I don't need it because if I am using light, I'm using not this. But to throw it in the bag and just have it handy in case I decide I need it or I find myself in a situation where I can bounce it or it can be helpful, it gets itself a lot higher up off the body than other pop-up flashes do. And so the higher you can get it up, the more it helps, at least a little bit. I'm not saying it's a lot, but that's kind of cool. It's a little cool thing. Innovative. I like it. This Fuji has 4K recording capabilities. Now I go back and forth about the need for that. I was pretty happy with my C100 not having 4K, but it's getting more and more like something that I feel like is important. I'm probably not going to be using it that much on this camera, but I might use it some. And so that's important to have as an option, not all the time, but as something I might use on occasion. A little bit like the pop-up flash. You might want it once in a while, but you don't need it all the time. It's there if you need it. And I think that's actually really great. This camera has 4:2:2 color, at least if you record externally. That's really good. That's what I want. I have some other cameras I've used that I'm real disappointed in 4:2:0 color. It's just, I don't like it. So 4:2:2, I'm happy about that. This Fuji XT-2 also has focus peaking and zebra highlight warnings. And so both of those are pretty significant professional features, and I'm digging that. It also has dual SD card slots, which I think is a professional feature. Because if you're shooting something that you cannot shoot again, you can't risk corrupt cards. And shooting it twice, where you can immediately after the shoot split those cards up into 2 different bags or 2 different people, that's actually really great. I'm not saying I use it all the time. I actually haven't used it yet, but it feels like a professional feature that I would want to use often on a professional shoot. So that dual SD card slot is actually really nice, but, and I may not have my facts correct on this, but what I thought I read, or what I think I remember reading, is that it doesn't work on video. So I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't tried it yet, but maybe that's a photo only feature, which is still helpful, but not quite as helpful if it doesn't do video. Maybe that's a firmware upgrade. I haven't had the time to fully investigate that. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. I bought the battery grip as well. For video, it just seems like a no-brainer. You got the headphone jack, you got the power, you can plug it into power and not need batteries. You've got the boost performance, which helps. You've got a longer recording life if you are on batteries with the 3 batteries, and if you're recording video, that battery goes up real fast, so you might as well have multiple batteries inside the camera. And so when you got the grip on there, you actually have the power of the 3 batteries either combined or just the length of the 3 batteries. You don't actually have to take out a battery in order to put the battery grip on like you do on Canons. So that's a small little thing that I love about this battery grip, is that you don't have to take out the battery to put it on. It's just, it simply screws in real quick and you've got your battery grip. Unscrew it real quick and you don't have your battery grip. So I keep the battery grip on there by default, but if I'm gonna grab the camera and do a walk around, if I go out to dinner or I'm just gonna do a quick walk, I may not want the battery grip taking up weight, so I just quickly unscrew that battery grip, set it down, and now I've got the camera. It's lighter, smaller, and I don't have to spend time fiddling, taking that little battery door off, put a new battery. It's just, this is a much better system. The battery grip, 2 thumbs up for the battery grip. I like the fact that it charges USB. So actually what happens now, I used to take out the SD card, put it in my computer, get the pictures off. That was my workflow. Now I just keep a USB cable, plug my camera in when I'm not using it, or sit down at the computer, get my images off, and just leave the camera plugged in and it charges. So I think that's awesome. The camera's usually charged up when I get ready to go, as long as you make sure the settings are right. You know, one of the complaints against this camera is APS-C sensor size, but for me, that's not so bad. I've used full frame plenty of times. I like it. For my real estate stuff, it'd be a real nice thing to have. It's not the end all be all. I've got this pretty wide 10-24 and that works pretty well. I don't need the fisheye effect. But the APS-C sensor size actually has one major advantage that I find, is if I put something like the 50-140 on there and I'm shooting a wedding, on an APS-C size sensor, that's actually a much longer lens. And so I can zoom in even more from across the room, get more close up on people's faces or on their hands or on their ring or on whatever's happening, cutting the cake. It doesn't matter, I can get closer. So that's a real advantage for shooting weddings. In fact, when I shoot weddings, I try and take a full frame with a wide angle on it. I try and take an APS-C with a telephoto on there, and I switch back and forth between the two because I want to exaggerate those lenses. I want even wider. I want even more telephoto. And so for me, that actually works out really great. I'm used to an APS-C size sensor anyway. My 70D had it, my C100 had it, and that's what I'm used to shooting with for the bulk of my stuff, is actually the APS-C size sensor, and my focal ranges are, I have, you know, muscle memory for that. And so I'm kind of used to it. So for me, that wasn't a big problem. For other people, I can see it being a concern. Not for me. I don't really care. I think it's fine. I'm happy with it. No real problems. I'm not trying to be like shooting in midnight and low light, although for weddings sometimes, but mostly it's fine. I like the APS-C size sensor. No problems for me. So let's talk about, just for a couple things, what do I not like about this camera? There are a few things that I'm not a huge fan of. The number one thing that I don't like about this camera is it doesn't have a flip out screen that I can see when I'm looking at the camera. So right now, I've actually got a monitor I'm looking at down here, so that's why I keep looking down. I've got a monitor I'm looking at to get framing right, to check focus. I can see my audio meters over there to make sure my audio's in the right level. I can see how long I've got recording left. So those are nice features to have, at least, especially just for framing and composition. But because this camera doesn't have a flip out screen, I have to have this external monitor, which is a bit of a bummer. I decided to go ahead with it anyway. I'm hoping Fuji comes out with a camera that has a flip out screen or a flip up screen, one or the other. For now, I'm surviving, but I wish it had that. The 70D had that, the 80D has that, and those are really nice. The 6D Mark II has that, and that was one of the other main competitors I was looking at. So anyway, Fuji, if you're listening, consider having a flip out screen. It's really great. Have it rotate all the way so that I can see it when I look right into the lens. That's all I'm asking. The battery life on these, it's okay. It's not great. I've got multiple batteries. I've got the battery grip. It's not a big problem. You know, I just want to be greedy and I want battery life to last all day on one charge. Fine, we can't have everything we want. I can live with it. One of the other major problems that I have, and one of the biggest holdups in buying this, is that these X-mount sensors, these X-mount lenses are not really compatible with, I don't know of any other brands that they're compatible with. I could be wrong. And maybe with adapters you can get it to another camera, but by default, I don't know any other cameras that have an X mount. So that's a bummer. Right now, I don't own any other lenses. I don't own any EF lenses. I don't own any Micro Four Thirds mount lenses. I don't own any Nikon lenses. I don't own Sony lenses. So right now, all I have are my Fuji lenses. That may change later on, but for now, I'm gonna have to rent everything. I'm gonna have to rent camera and lenses if I want to go big. And one more thing that if we're talking about these lenses, I have found these lens hoods to be quite fiddly and not really, they don't go on very well. They're kind of they kind of go on crooked. They kind of hard to, well, that one went on great. But they're a little loose, and so sometimes I can easily knock it off. It sometimes goes on crooked and it's not on there right. So you know, that's a perfect example. I think it's on there. It's not. You know, is it on? Is it not on? Okay, now it's on. So it's a little fiddly. Kind of a minor complaint. I've seen some other users have third-party lens hoods, and I think they're made from metal, and that seems kind of cool. So I may look into that. I feel like I've been talking a long time. I went really fast. I might have forgot something. I'm not trying to be covering everything. I just wanted to get a video out there about what do I think about the Fuji so far, and I'm really loving it. I've got some images that I've been posting on Instagram with it, on my blog too. So if you want to check those out, the link is below. I'd appreciate it. If you like what I had to say or dislike what I had to say, give it a thumbs up. Either way, let's do this. And if you want to learn more about my philosophy on cameras and shooting and video, I've just got this Video Mic Pro Plus. I want to talk about that a little bit. So anyway, my channel is going to be kind of tech heavy, camera, digital life. Actually, I've got a category called This Digital Life, and I think that's what I'm going to call this stuff. So anyway, just hit subscribe if you want to follow me and what I'm putting out there. I do appreciate it. Please go ahead and comment. I'm loving you guys when you comment. So good or bad, if you hate Fuji, if you love Fuji, if you find what I said to be bullshit, whatever, just give a thumbs up or a comment. I really appreciate it. Cheers, guys.